Bombshell at Red Bull. Laurent Mekies has just publicly admitted that the RB21 has serious flaws, and not even Max Verstappen can always cover them up. What seemed like an unbeatable car could be about to lose ground to McLaren. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you think Red Bull will manage to fix these problems before the end of the season? So, what's really going on behind the scenes at Red Bull? Stay until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In this video, we'll break down what Mekies and the team themselves have revealed about the RB21's weaknesses and improvements. To understand the current situation of Red Bull, you have to go back to the origin of RB21. This car was born with a clear idea: to follow the path marked by the successful RB20, taking advantage of its same design philosophy. The objective was simple on paper, but ambitious in practice: squeeze the maximum aerodynamic efficiency and the power of the Honda engine. With that base, the team intended to dominate both in lines and in fast curves, maintaining a predictable and fast car in most calendar circuits. However, in Formula One, each technical decision implies a sacrifice. In the case of RB21, engineers decided to slightly reduce the maximum peak of aerodynamic load to try to expand what they call the work window of the car. That window is the range of conditions in which the car yields 100%. On paper, this change should have allowed more consistent performance on different tracks and temperatures, preventing the car from being too dependent on specific circumstances. The problem is that, in practice, this goal has not yet been fulfilled. Laurent Mekies himself, current team director, acknowledged that they have not found the balance point they were looking for. This means that the car still has a very limited operating window. It is enough that the temperature of the track changes a few degrees, or that the configuration is not perfect for the RB21 to lose part of its performance. And when a Formula One car becomes unpredictable, even the best pilots, such as Verstappen, can be seen against the strings. This detail is key to understand why, despite having a very fast car in ideal conditions, Red Bull has suffered on certain weekends. The difficulties do not appear when everything is in place, but when the circumstances force to adapt. At that time, RB21 ceases to be the unbeatable machine that seems in statistics and becomes a constant challenge for its pilots, especially in slow or sock curve circuits, where aerodynamic balance is more fragile. The real challenge for Red Bull is that this limitation is not a simple problem of tuning that can be solved in a couple of free training sessions. We are talking about an intrinsic characteristic of the concept of the car. Changing it thoroughly would imply a structural review of the design, something that is practically impossible in the middle of the season. Therefore, the team has focused on small improvements, trying to soften those extreme reactions of the car without losing the speed that makes it so competitive at its optimal point. If on paper the RB21 seems a precision machine, on the track the story is very different when the conditions are not perfect. The great car heel of the car is its operating window. This means that the car pays to the maximum only within a very specific range of temperature and configuration. When that range breaks, the performance collapses abruptly, and what was a dominant car becomes a vulnerable rival for other teams. We saw the clearest example in Hungary. Since the first free training session, RB21 was literally cold. The tires never reached the ideal temperature, and that resulted in a very limited grip, especially in slow and sock curves. In Formula One, not lighting the tires is like running with your hands tied. Each braking is unstable, each curve output is less explosive, and the wear of the compound becomes unpredictable. The thermal sensitivity of RB21 is another of the big problems. It is not only the asphalt temperature, but also about heat management in the brakes and the internal cooling of the car. Any variation in these elements causes tires to lose their ideal range, and when that happens, the car becomes difficult to predict. It is a double problem, because it not only affects the speed, but also the confidence of the pilot. And in F1, trust is the secret weapon to push to the limit. This hits Yuki Tsunoda more strongly, which does not have the same ease as Verstappen to find that sweet point of the car. While Max gets, in most cases, adapting and getting the best out of the RB21, his partner suffers more to handle it in these extreme conditions. The result is a remarkable difference in performance between the two, which also limits the team's ability to add points and defend key positions in the construction championship. The problem is not passenger. Laurent Mekies has already recognized that there is no quick solution. The tests carried out in Hungary, from changes in the alignment of the wheels to variations in the equilibrium of the car, did not give the expected result. This makes it clear that we are not facing a simple weekend technical adjustment, but before a challenge that accompanies the car from its initial design. Within the team, the official position is clear. There is no immediate solution that can erase the weaknesses of RB21. Laurent Mekies has said it bluntly. The priority is to continue developing the car as far as possible, but always under the reality that the base concept will not change this season. This situation places Max Verstappen in a very particular position. On the one hand, it is still the most valuable asset of the team. Its ability to adapt to an unpredictable car and squeeze each tenth of performance is what keeps Red Bull in the struggle for victories. On the other hand, frustration can appear when the pilot knows that, no matter how much it pushes, there are factors out of its control that prevent it from reaching maximum potential in all races. As for the rest of the team, there is a combination of prudence and urgency. On the one hand, they know that they cannot take risks to introduce drastic changes that compromise the reliability or general balance of the car. On the other, each race in which the RB21 is not at its optimal point is a lost opportunity in front of McLaren for Verstappen. This is a time where patience mixes with the strategy. It is not just about winning races, but ensuring that each point added has in the final battle of the championship. And although Red Bull fully trusts the star pilot, he also knows that the competition will not wait. The effect on future development must be considered. Red Bull is already focusing part of its resources on the 2026 car, which means that any effort to improve RB21 is made with a limited budget and time. If planned adjustments do not work, they could be forced to accept that this season will not be as dominant as the previous ones and focus all their energy on the new regulation. This, although strategic, implies leaving free ground for other teams to consolidate positions. The most critical consequence would be that Verstappen will be forced to depend more on his talent than on the machinery he has. And although he is able to win in adverse conditions, the constant rivals with more balanced cars could end up tilting the balance in key moments of the championship. In F1, the titles are won with speed, but also with consistency, and that is the point where Red Bull cannot afford to fail. Red Bull knows that a second half of the season marked by inconsistency cannot be allowed, so he already works in a package of small improvements designed to attack the most obvious weak points of RB21. It is not a technical revolution, but a series of thorough adjustments that, combined, could give the car that extra margin that needs to stay competitive in all circuits. One of the main foci is on the side body. The team plans to introduce modifications inspired by solutions seen in other competitors, with the aim of optimizing the flow of air to the rear of the car. These modifications not only seek to gain aerodynamic load in medium curves, but also reduce the sensitivity of the car to the changes in track temperature. The flat background is another of the elements that will receive attention. Adjusting the position of the front fences and modifying the central zone of the diffuser could help the car better manage vortices in abrupt changes. This is key to maintaining stability in slow curves, where RB21 has shown one of its greatest weaknesses during the season. The rear suspension will also be reviewed. Small changes in its geometry and the angle of incidence could improve the way the air flow interacts with the diffuser, which in turn would help maintain the balance of the car in more technical sections. Although these adjustments seem minimum, in Formula 1, every detail counts, and an improvement of just a few tenths per lap can decide a race. The thermal management of the tires is another priority front. Red Bull is developing new brake ducts and variations in the size of the discs to achieve a more uniform heating. With this, they seek that the compounds enter the performance window more predictable, reducing the risk of being out of the optimal range, as happened in Hungary. Finally, the front wing could receive modifications in the area of the terminal plates and in the design of the waterfall. The idea is to allow a finer adjustment of the aerodynamic balance, adapting better to the needs of each track. It will not be a definitive solution, but one more tool for pilots to extract the maximum of the car in different conditions. RB21 is still a fast car, especially in ideal conditions, but its fragility outside that operating window makes it a double-edged sword. This reality forces the team to work with surgical precision so as not to let out key points, while the competition stalks closer and closer. What began as a rumor or a simple technical concern has been confirmed by Laurent Mekies' own. There is no quick solution. This means that Verstappen and the team must live with this challenge throughout the year, and that the key will be how they minimize its effects on each grand prize. In such a tight championship, even a couple of complicated weekends can make the difference between winning or losing the title. The pressure on Verstappen will be constant. It is not enough to be fast. It must also be intelligent, calculating, and capable of adapting to a car that can sometimes become unpredictable. For a pilot of his level, the frustration of not always being able to attack the maximum could be a factor to monitor, especially if the rivals find more consistency in their machines. The truth is that Red Bull still has weapons to fight, but cannot fall asleep. Formula One is a minimum margin sport, and right now those margins are those that separate Verstappen from continuing at the top or being involved in a much harder battle than expected. The next races will be the definitive test to know if Red Bull can stand firm or if the competition pressure will end up breaking the balance they have built in recent years. And now I want to know your opinion. Do you think that Verstappen will be able to maintain domain despite the difficulties, or are we seeing the beginning of an era change in Formula One? Do not forget to subscribe to the channel.